Looking at Safari, if you happen to use a different browser that you've downloaded, say you use, I don't know if you might use Chrome, a lot of these things will apply. They'll be very similar methods. So if you're using something else, know that these features still exist. They may just be located in a slightly different place. If you also use other devices besides iPad, say you use like a smartphone, or sometimes occasionally maybe you use a computer, all of these things apply across the board. You can do this on any device. It just, again, they might look a bit different. So this is a practice that you can apply anytime you're using the internet. So I'm going to start by going into Safari, our internet app here. This might look slightly different depending on the browser you're using, but also just depending on how you're holding the device, right? The setup of the screen might look different. But when we are in Safari, you'll notice that obviously we can type in at the top, or else sometimes it's located at the bottom for using a phone. I type up here and I can use this field. It will bring up my keyboard. So if I wanted to access a website directly, I just type in the full URL, which is something, .org or .com or .gov, right? So website name its ending form. So I can do that and I can go directly to a website. I obviously can also just come up here and put in anything I want, how to, screenshot a map, and it will perform a Google search for me. So acts in both ways. But in any case, I do something, I'm on a website, I get to that website, and I want to be able to have easier access to this website. So I don't want to have to type in or search for it every single time I want to access it. I have options here to basically be able to save this website to make it easier. This might see slightly different. Sometimes it will look like just a little book icon. So for example, on my phone, I know this appears as a little book, and it's at the bottom of my screen. But here on my iPad, what I have is this small sort of thing on the side in my top left corner, regardless, this little thing. So I can click up here. And when I click on it, what it does is it opens up this menu, right? Here, I can see, how many tabs I have open. So I can always have multiple tabs, which means I can be going back and forth between multiple websites without having to retype the address in the same bar. And then I have different modes. So I have a private mode, which, by the way, if you're not familiar with this mode, if I just click on this, I go into what's called private browsing mode. Basically, all this means is that when I go to a website, it does not save it in my browser history, right? So anytime we do anything on the internet, we go to a website, what's going to happen is our browser will automatically save that in our browsing history. This serves the purpose of allowing us to go back and find pages that we've been to recently. But when you use private browsing mode, basically it doesn't save into this history. So it doesn't save anything you've searched. It doesn't save anything you've Googled or any website you've gone to. The next time someone goes on, they might click, and then it might come up as a suggested search option. So that's why you might use private browsing, basically to search for anything that you just don't want saved in your history. But the main focus we're going to be looking at is this section, which includes our bookmarks, our reading list. The first thing we're going to look at is bookmarks. So if I'm on this website and I come here and I click on bookmarks, you can see that I have some options here. So I have my favorites. So this is any website that I've saved as a favorite. And this is kind of some sort of automatic list that you can just add any website you want to. So you're on the website, you'll click add to my favorite, and it automatically gets to add to this list. But say I want to add this to my bookmark list or favorite this page. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click this button up here, right? It's the square with the arrow in it. This is how we do a lot of functionalities within here. So this is how we can share a website with other people, but it's how we can do these things: add to a reading list, or add a bookmark, or add to favorite. These three things. So if I say click add to favorite, I can retitle this to make it easier. So if the website's like really long, you can just like delete part of it. So you don't have to like have the full title, but it like brings up this keyboard and it just ensures you have the right URL here. And then you can just click save. So now I have favorited this website. Alternatively, I can also bookmark this website. So I can say click add bookmark. And when I do this, it just asks me where I want to save it. So it's kind of the same thing as favoriting, but you can put it in a specified folder. So it's just, in this case, going to give me the same stuff up here, but down here, it's also going to ask me for a location. So it's right now it's in favorites, but I can change this and like create bookmarks, or I can add a new folder. And when I add a new folder, I can say, this is a learning resource. So you can start to categorize your websites. I find this to be really helpful in terms of creating folders for my purposes. And this is just personal, just giving you an example of how this might be used, is when I'm like online shopping. Say I'm buying something for my home and I'm like doing research and I'm searching different products and I want to be able to save them. So I like know what my options are. I might create, like, say I'm looking for a new chair. I might create a folder and call it like chairs. And then I'm just saving links to products so that I like can go back and like compare them and look at them later if I'm just like doing that. But that's like an option of how you might use this. Back up here, the last option, add to reading list, is the last one. So when you add to reading list, you can automatically reading list articles. So what reading list is intended for is not so much websites, but say an article. So say you're online and you're reading something from a news outlet. This is something you might want to add to a reading list. It's basically a way to save a website in a somewhat less permanent way that's easier just to kind of dismiss and be done with when you're gone. So it will go away sooner, versus bookmarks and favorites are things that you might keep stored because you're always using them. Whereas bookmarks are something like, I want to come back to this, but once I come back to it and I read it, like I don't really need it anymore. Mainly it's used if you're like reading news online, you get halfway through an article and something comes up and you want to come back and read it again, that sort of thing. So you can do this. The other thing you can do with reading list articles is you can save them automatically. So the first time you do this, it will ask if you want to save them automatically for offline reading. Basically, what this means is that it gets stored, the page itself, as it exists in the time that you save it, gets saved as a copy on your device. So you can access it without an internet connection later on. Maybe your just connection to internet is not as strong and not as reliable. You can save stuff so you can access it even when you don't have access to internet. So it just basically saves a copy of that single page on your device for later. So when we set that up, we do that. So yeah, you can add things to your reading lists. And when you click it, you just add them and they're added. All that to say, this is why we're over here before, this little section. If I come back here now, and I come back to the same section before where I had these saves, I can go to my bookmarks. I can see that if I click into favorites, I have this website here. I also have this folder that I created, right? And all of that. So we can access that there. If I come to my reading list, I should also have this here, right? And basically when I click on it, it will load up. And usually what should happen is now it should go away, right? So I've come back to it, I've read it, and now that I've opened it, it removes itself from my reading list because I've come back to it. So I save it as a reading list, I open it, and once I open it, it removes itself from my reading list because that's the reason for it. It was just like putting like a pin in it, coming back to it. So reading list, a good option for saving sites that you need to return to maybe just once more, but otherwise don't have a reason to come back to time and time again. But saving things as either bookmarks or favorites, which I explained is essentially the same thing. You can just create folders here to specify. You can still delete them, but they don't disappear automatically. So say I did save stuff to my favorites, right? I saved this website. And say now I'm like, actually, I don't need this website anymore. If I ever need to do this, there's a small, tiny little edit button right down here. And I can basically click on this here, these like little red buttons. These are kind of like the delete from a list iPad button. They come up in your settings sometimes, but I can just basically click this little red minus symbol. This option should come up and I can delete it. And it's gone from my bookmarks. Alternatively, click on this and I can move folders. So say this folder I accidentally put in my favorites, which I didn't mean to do. Say I want to move it. I can change its location. So it's now located like in this main area versus within a folder. So that being said, you can create folders within folders. So you can organize things however you need.